Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/Entitled People. Today we have a brand new set of great stories for you to enjoy. Here we go. Comply with a 30-year-old dress code? You got it, boss. The shelter I've, 30-year-old male, been working at for a couple of years now is over 30 years old and is quite notorious for keeping things that way. The daily notes are physically kept in binders, 80s-style punitive measures are imposed on clients in conflict, and the electrical panels are labeled with cards that went through a typewriter. You get the idea. The floor supervisor, over 20 years in that position, emphasized that even though jeans were allowed, we needed to strictly adhere to the dress code. That meant button-up or collared shirts, no logos, only long pants or dresses, no hats unless you're outside, no visible tattoos, etc. In other words, dress nothing like the vast majority of the people we serve. We're meant to dress the way they should aspire to dress, said the supervisor. I was told other staff, including staff above my pay grade, have long hated the dress code and unsuccessfully tried to change it for years. None of them were bold little craps like me, though. Given my previous experience with underserved populations, I also knew this was a terrible idea. Generally speaking, what people in these communities lack in financial resources, they make up for in their abilities to read people and navigate emotions. If they think you're an authority figure or acting inauthentic, many will outright write you off. And for the most part, they have great social/emotional radar. The dress code said men's shirts must have visible buttons or a collar. I sewed 2 buttons near my hip on a plain t-shirt and wore it in. They said nothing the first time, but had a meeting where they weren't pointing out anyone in particular and updated that specific part of the policy to prevent me from doing it again. Next, I wore capris. After all, nothing about pant length was mentioned either. That time the dress code was updated and we were informed via email. Still, no one-on-one conversation about it. A few months and minor malicious compliances later, our workplace gave us logoed t-shirts with the institution's name and website on them. Hooray, we thought. At least we'll be able to wear t-shirts now. Nope. After a week of several coworkers wearing the shirts they gave us, we got an organization-wide email that the shirts did not comply with the dress code and should not be worn during work hours. Knowing me as the office rabble-rouser, several PO'd coworkers came to me independently to ask how they too could rebel. Enter this story's biggest malicious compliance. As a minimalist, I had no desire to hold on to a shirt that I would not wear. We had no input on the design/color of the shirts, and I simply did not need it taking up space in my closet. The most reasonable alternative would be to turn the shirt back in and explain that. So I did. Coworker number 1 was moving soon and didn't need an extra thing to pack, so she also turned hers in. Number 2's partner hated dark green, the shirt's color, so he turned his in. This happened all the way to 25 total employees, with some borrowing others' excuses. After 5 days, the supervisor had a box with 24 shirts sitting in his tiny office. He actually has to keep them on his desk, and I can hear him bumping his hand against them when he uses the mouse. 3 months later, they're still there. He's not dumb. He knows those shirts are an FU that lives in his office. He cannot donate them to the shelter due to some other ridiculous handbook rule about organizational spending, and he bikes 6 miles to work, so driving them home isn't a reasonable option. He's tried putting them in the general office storage, but the boss has said the shirts are the supervisor's problem since he ordered them. Currently, he's just stuck. We know it bothers him, but he knows he can't bring it up since it's his own rules that prevent us from wearing them. No dress code changes so far, but the top-of-the-year meeting regarding our handbook has dress code on the table. 3 of the people who returned shirts are a part of that advisory board of 5. I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll finally be rid of some of the dumb, short-sighted elements of our dress code come February. And our next story. Don't mess with a self-made millionaire's bread and butter. I was working for a fellow named Max who built a business from the ground up. He came to Canada from Europe as a child, as a World War II refugee with his parents, penniless. A real success story, and the nicest guy you would ever want to work for. We see a few posts in this sub about a-hole bosses. Max was the opposite. His business was built around packaging. It was a slitter/rewinder operation. It takes wide rolls of material, slits it into strips, then rewinds it onto cores. Max developed and patented a process that was able to put 15 to 20 times more material on a finished core than any of his competitors. You've seen a roll of masking tape? Picture a stack of 10 rolls about 2 or 3 times the diameter, but all wound onto a single core. We made a number of products. You know the infuriating tear tape that you use to open a pack of cigarettes or a CD? Yeah, we made that. We also had a client in Germany that would send us big rolls of raw elastic material, which we would slit and then send back to them. It was used for, if you can believe it, baby diaper legs. The elastic that holds the diaper to the infant's leg gently but firmly. The Germans once visited our factory, and Max treated them royally. They took photos of everyone, including the machine operators next to the machines, the raw materials, and the finished product. Now, for those of you who aren't parents, babies are little crap factories, and the baby diaper business is enormous. We're talking about $50 billion annually worldwide. So our client's contract is coming up for renewal in a month or two, and Max isn't seeing much in the way of interest. Remember, if they go with a competitor, they'll have to shut down their machines much more frequently to change the rolls of elastics for the legs. This doesn't make much sense, as it would slow production down considerably. Max reaches out and gets a very non-committal response. Something's fishy. Now you have to remember that this business is Max's baby, and he was both the nicest guy and one of the most tenacious and determined men I'd ever met. So Max arranged for some detectives in Germany to investigate. They reported that the client hadn't retooled their machines to accept the competition spools, nor did they appear to have any plans to. The detectives also discovered that some people connected with the German factory had set up a factory of their own, a slitter factory. Yep, those sneaky guys were about to open their own plant to supply spools of baby diaper leg elastic to the diaper factory and save themselves the cost of shipping the material to Canada for processing. And they were going to duplicate exactly the rolls they were getting from us. So Max waits until the moment the renewal option on the contract expires, then slaps this new factory with an injunction for patent infringement. Well, now the shice has hit the fan. The baby diaper factory has a stock of elastic that'll run out in days. For them to retool their machines to accept a competitor's rolls will take weeks, and they have commitments to the brand name companies that package and retail the diapers. So guess who starts burning up the phones to reach Max? Max knows that they're spending a fortune on transatlantic shipping to move the product, so he renegotiates to include a much higher price for processing, as well as a clause where he handles the shipping costs. Again, at a boost to the price. The factory really has no choice, they have to sign. It's that or take massive non-compliance penalties from their customer. Then, having cut a deal where he makes a price per load of product to handle the logistics, he turns to the new factory itself. You see, they'd invested heavily in new slitters, then modified them to produce Max's cores. They couldn't be used in production due to the injunction and couldn't be returned to the manufacturer due to the modifications. They were looking at a long and protracted legal battle that was set to cost a bundle in lawyers' fees. Max offered to drop the legal battle and buy the factory at much less than it was worth. They had no choice. They had to sell. And it was in the same city as the baby diaper factory. So Max now bumped his price and was compensated shipping per load of product as if the load had come from overseas, when actually it was just down the road. We ended up using the excess production capacity in Canada to market these cores to North American diaper factories, and the factory in Germany started making inroads into the European markets. All in all, it was a nice win for Max and put him into an unusually good mood for quite some time. And our next story. You can park anywhere but where I park. This happened a few years ago, but a conversation about parking has brought it back up, and I thought it would be perfect for this sub. It's fairly simple, but was so satisfying. So my house is at the end of a close. This is basically a small, longish, private dead-end road to which our house was the last one of. When you reached the end, the actual road morphed into our driveway. It was a different color and was separated off by hedges, aside from the car entrance. It was clearly our driveway. We owned the land. Upon purchasing the house, my parents were not warned of any a-hole neighbors. The driveway has space for 4 cars. We have 1. It's rarely used as my parents take the train to London for work and walk to the station. This is relevant. Until we come back from a 2-week holiday and find an old Renault plonked in our driveway. At first we say nothing because we have no issue with someone using our driveway just to visit their family or temporarily, but when the car kept leaving and coming back, we started to get annoyed. They hadn't even asked us. We don't use the other 3 spaces, but the rudeness really had us PO'd. So when the car next pulls into our driveway, we're waiting. We open the door, confront the driver, and ask him nicely to stop using our driveway as a public car park. Neighbor gets annoyed, as he always used it. Old neighbors had no issue. He looked us dead in the eye and goes, "You can park anywhere else, but leave me the space, or I'll be PO'd." My dad replies and goes, "We can park anywhere else? In that case, we won't park where you park your car." Old rude man smiles, thinking he's won, walks off a few doors down to his old house. I think my father's given up and let him win. I'm a bit disappointed. So the next day I wake up for college to the sound of my dad's car. The old man had gone to work, and my dad is in the process of parking his bunged-up, massive Land Rover right over the entrance to our massive drive, meaning no other cars can enter. Technically, parking anywhere else other than where the old man wanted to leave his car. And our last story, for dessert. Well, that's the wrong kind of tank. Not my malicious compliance, but one from London. With the UK being the UK, you need permission from the council to do anything on your plot of land. One gentleman owned a plot of land on Mandela Way in London and wanted to develop some property on the land. However, the council did not want this to go through and turned him down. Cue his malicious compliance. He wrote to the council to put a tank on the land. The council thought he meant a septic tank, when in fact he meant a T-34 Russian tank used during the Prague Spring of 1968. When he placed the tank on the land, he pointed the barrel in the direction of the council building as a final screw you. The council cannot remove it, as technically they gave him full permission to place the tank on the land. So he's not allowed to build there, but sure, he's allowed to build a septic tank. Honestly, why were they expecting him to put a septic tank in the middle of an empty lot? Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.